Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your flexibility. Baruch Hashem traveled for a simcha last night, unable to give the shir this morning. But who could pass up the opportunity to learn Parshas Bechukosai together? So often, almost always, it's combined with Parshas Bahar. We rarely, if ever, get to focus just on this Parsha. So I figured as long as someone would come, and if no one came, I had the camera stand that looks a little bit like a person. So at least I'd have one chavrusa. I want to thank, as always, our generous Parsha Shiri sponsors, Becky and Avi Katz and family, in memory of David Grossman, Leila Nishmas, David Ben Menachem, Manish Neshama Shav and Aliyah. We're very grateful to the Katzes. Also this evening shir is sponsored by Judy and Mitch Tarragon in honor of the marriage of their son Yitz to Ariella Maryland in commemoration of the second yahrzeit of Mitch's father Jerry Tarragon, Yoshua Dov Ben Azriel. Mazel Tov on the Simcha and Neshama Shav and Aliyah. Should always sponsor for many more Simchas, please God. Parshas Bechukosai. Page 708 in the Art Scroll Stone Chumash. Im Bechukosai telecho, ves mitzvosai tishmur v'asisam osam. If you follow my decrees, you observe my commandments, if you perform them. And then the Torah goes on to give us a list of promises. V'nasati gishmechem be'itam, I'll make the rain fall in its time. We've analyzed and studied this so many times in the past, offering so many interpretations. I say this in the beginning of every Parsha class. We read the same Parsha every week, so I don't feel so bad every year. The Parsha doesn't change. And the interpretations, we try to bring new ones each week, but some of the themes overlap and they're important. They need reinforcement just like the Parsha itself. So, V'nasati gishmechem be'itam, and God says, I will give you rain in its right time. Gishmechem is also the root of the word gashmias. This is a promise of the physical, material reward in its right time. It's a famous question, which is, what happened to there's no reward in this world? We don't get rewarded in this world for doing the right thing. The reward is living a most meaningful, purposeful, virtuous, valuable, satisfying, gratifying life. There's no external reward. And here the Parsha seems to suggest, if you do the right thing, observe my laws, get it all done, then I'm going to reward you dafka with gashmis, gishmechem be'itam. So which is it? Is it a reward of gashmis, ruchnias, this world, the next world? What's going on in the beginning of our Parsha? But even before we get to that, Rashi tells us, Mitzvos. So maybe, Bechukosai, what's the root of Bechukosai? Chok. If you walk, if you carry yourself following my chukim, Ves Mitzvosai Tishmeru, and Tishmeru means observe, keep my mitzvos, and v'asisam masam, and you do them. So three descriptions: telechu, tishmeru, and asisam, and two categories: chukosai and mitzvosai. We're not the first to pick up on that. Rashi was bothered. Yochazakiyam mitzvos. Maybe bechukosai means observe my laws, but it can't be. Why? Because the pasuk is about to spell out mitzvosai tishmeru. Harikiyam mitzvos amor, so it's already covered. So mani makayim es bechukosai telechu. So what then is God saying? If telechu, if you walk with my chukim, what is that mission? What is that mandate? And Rashi says the famous words, Shetehiyu amelim b'Torah. This is the Torah obligation to learn and study Torah, not at some surface or superficial level, but to delve into, to immerse ourselves, to toil, to sweat, to work on our learning of Torah. Torah is not supposed to just come and be spoon-fed. It's not on a silver platter. Shouldn't just be downloaded, transmitted. It takes work. You know, the more work, the more effort you put in, the more you make something your own. Rav Dessler's famous formula, that love is the result not of receiving, but of giving. When you give your energy and your toil and your sweat and your tears and your time, when you work really hard in order to be able to understand, in order to be able to appreciate, you acquire it. That's in fact what David HaMelech says at the very beginning of Tehillim, Kapitel Aleph. He says, Ki im b'Torah Hashem cheftzo, if your desire is the Torah of Hashem, u'v'soraso yehegeh yomam v'layla. So we went from Torah Hashem to soraso. We went from the Torah that belongs to God, the divine, to your Torah. What makes it your Torah? You went on Art Scroll, you went on Korah, and you went on whatever publishing house, I don't want to get in trouble, and you purchased, you downloaded, you went to the bookstore, the Sfarim store, you came home with some Sfarim. That's what makes it your Torah? No. V'soraso is a kinyan HaTorah, when you acquire. And how do you acquire? When learning Torah is not a passive experience, when learning Torah is not a spectator sport, when learning Torah is not supposed to be with comfort and ease, but you're willing to work on it, break your teeth on it, study it, challenge yourself with it. Shetiyu amelim baTorah, amelus, to toil, to break a sweat. They say lahavdil in another area where we want to grow and gain and improve ourselves physically. Famously, it was said, no pain, no gain. So what's true in the physical world is also true in the spiritual world. No pain, no gain. Now, I don't mean to minimize, certainly those of you who are here in person, those watching online, who are listening and learning, and what is chus, what an unbelievable honor for me to learn together with you. And it's valuable, and it's wonderful. I hope it is. That's why you keep coming back, and it brings me back. It makes me want to not cancel, even if we have to do it at an awkward time. I have a different relationship with the Parsha in weeks that we have the Parsha Shir. I do it for myself, not for you. But in the end of the day, when you attend a Shir and you sit back, and here in the Rand Sanctuary Boca Raton Synagogue, we got some really comfortable chairs. Sit back, in the back you got coffee and tea station. Back in the heyday, granola bars, in the morning, a little breakfast, and you sit back and you say, "No, inspire me. No, give me some good stuff. Give me something from my Shabbos table." And there's value. I understand this is bad. This is bad for the business here for me, what I'm doing right now. You should keep coming to Shir, but don't let that take the place of real Torah learning. And real Torah learning is open a sefer, break your teeth, sit with a dictionary, work hard to understand, grow your skills, work to decipher, to understand, to review, to remember. Some of you come to our Smichas Chaver Shir, the great gift to Klal Yisrael from Rabbi Eliyadah Goldvicht, and it includes a bechina, people of all ages. We have people take bechinas, who take the test, they challenge themselves on the halachic material, who haven't taken a test in 60 years. In over 60 years. And then walking around with notes and reviewing and memorizing, and of course challenging the teacher. That wasn't clear, that's not a fair question. It's fantastic how excited. Amelim baTorah, to get involved, invested. But here's the question. Where did Chazal get that from the words, Bechukosai telechu? Where is Amelim baTorah? Rashi raises the challenge. It can't be mitzvos, because that we say later in the pasuk. So it's got to be something else. And what's the something else? Shetu amelim baTorah. Okay, we understand the lesson of the something else. We understand we have to get to something else. But how did we get from can't be mitzvos has to mean something else to meaning shetu amelim baTorah? So we have several answers to share. First, the Amoros Tahoros, the Rachma Shtivka Rebbe quotes the Divrei Chaim of Sanz, the Heilig of the Holy Divrei Chaim of Sanz. Kosel Dvar Mashe Perish Rashi Bechukosai Telechu Shtemelim baTorah. Hine yesh lavin madua perish Bechukosai Telechu al Amelis baTorah. V'chi hechan mashma amal baTorah b'lashon hakasav. Where do you see that in the words? Telechu means to walk, and Bechukosai means the chukim. Where do you see from there it means don't just sit back in a recliner and passively listen to shir and maybe try to stay awake till the end, but immerse yourself, be dedicated, be devoted. Where do you see that in the words? The Ma'inyan, who says that the Chaim, when a person works hard and toils, when a person gives of themselves, makes the effort, no pain, no gain. When a person is truly orangutan in learning, when a person is truly immersed, when a person is really lost, when a person is really delving, when a person is really debating, it's not amelis at all. There's a great expression. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I've never worked a day in my life. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And if you love the learning, it'll never feel like amelis. You know what's amelis? I'm tired. I don't feel like it. I don't understand. It's not coming easily. I don't have any energy. I can't focus. I don't want to be doing this. That's when it feels like amelis. It's work. Sometimes your mind is not clear. You're focused or thinking about other things. You're worried about a livelihood or some other source of anxiety. Worry. And you ask, you know what takes amelos? when you run into that wall, when you don't feel like doing it, when you're exhausted, when it's not coming easily, when it doesn't make sense, when you want to be and go somewhere else, and you stick it out anyway, and you show up anyway. In the physical world too, it's not a big deal if you work out and exercise when you're excited about it, when you're into it, when you're on a roll, when it feels good, when you get the feedback, when you're getting energized. What happens when you didn't get the night's sleep you were hoping to get? What happens when you didn't eat right? What happens when there's so much on your mind? What happens when you have every excuse under the sun to cancel, but you show up? That's when it really counts. And all the more so, alachas kama v'kama, in Torah learning, that's when it really counts. Wow. What's a chok? A chok is I don't understand the reason. I can't comprehend. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not coming easily. It's not coming naturally. It doesn't have a taste. It doesn't have a taste. The opposite of a chok is a mitzvah that has a ta'am. Ta'amei mitzvos. Ta'amei mitzvos. Several commentators explain, and I've shared this before, that we use the same word for taste and reason. How do you say ta'am? Does it have a good ta'am? Tastes good? Ta'am is a taste. Reason is, tes ayin mem, is a reason. Why do we have the same word? Whenever we use the same word for two different definitions, it means those definitions are intertwined. What do reason and taste have to do with each other? The answer is, we eat in order to live. And bland food, bread and water, if it was all that were available, we'd have to eat it because we need it to live. If you're malnourished, if you don't eat enough, then you can't live. If it tastes good, all the better. If it tastes great, makes it even more pleasurable, more enjoyable. But whether it tastes good or not, you have to eat in order to live. The same is true with Torah learning. You have to learn Torah whether it makes sense, whether you have the reason, whether you comprehend, whether you feel like it. It is the spiritual nourishment for the soul. It's more delicious when it has a tam, when you understand the reason, when it makes sense. It tastes more delicious. It's more exciting. But even if you don't have the reason, and even if it doesn't make sense, you still have to swallow your Torah. You have to take in your daily portion, your Torah calorie intake, even if it doesn't. So ta'am is reason and ta'am is taste, because they're similar and they go together. And now, says the Hilig Divrei Chaim, the Sanzer, now we understand, where did Chazal get this from? Bechukosai is when Torah requires amelus. When it comes easily and naturally, and it's fun, and it's seamless, and it's smooth, and it's without friction, then it's not amelus. When it's amelus, it's a chok. This doesn't make sense. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be here. It's not coming easily. Kasher ha'esek b'Torah tia etzlechem kechok b'litam, shelo tiyu mesugal lahaven alim karoi, af apichin telechu, but you show up. Telechu, you came. You showed up. You're here nonetheless. And then v'nasati gishmechem b'itam. When does Hashem give us a reward? Not when it's easy. Not when it's natural. Not when you get the instant feedback and gratification. But when you didn't feel like it and it doesn't make sense and it feels like a chok, why do I have to do this? And you know what? You show up, telechu, you came anyway. You showed up anyway. That's when the reciprocal bracha, v'nasati gishmechem b'itam, that's when it comes. So that's how the Chaim understands. He suggests that's how Chazal saw in the words, Bechukosai telechu, shetiu amelim b'Torah. Shetiu amelim b'Torah. The Chida in the Sefer Nachal Kedumim explains based on the measures, the mitzvos you observe and you do them. Im shamartem es haTorah nimala alechem kilo atem asisim osam. Amar Chanina bar Papi amar lehem im shamartem es haTorah nimala alechem kilo asisim atzmechem. L'chor yesh lahavin havza b'neim. Two opinions in the Gemara. It's not, is it if you observe the mitzvos, the Torah, it's as if you've done them, or it's as if you've created asisim atzmechem. You've made yourselves. So the Chida explains. No one person can complete or observe all 613. Why? Very simple. Can't be a Kohen Levi in Israel, a man and a woman, live in Israel and outside of Israel. Time of the Beis Mikdash, not time of the Mikdash. You can't be the combination that is able to personally fulfill and live all of the mitzvahs. Impossible. So how do we do it? Pigeon Haben, all the examples. Chutz La'aretz, Eretz Israel. So how do we have a relationship with all Taryag mitzvos if by definition we are not qualified to fulfill them all. Because of bizakama etos, there are many pieces of advice. Some say you can't technically observe all mitzvos, but you can long for, hope for, have a relationship with, study, get to the deeper meaning, the pneumius of the mitzvah. And then observe each mitzvah opportunity that presents itself. As long as you long to, and you want to, and you yearn to, and you identify with, and you associate with, and you study, and you connect to the deeper meaning of, Hashem treats it as if we kept it all. As if we kept it all. And that's what it means. If you learn the laws of the Olah, it's as if you offered an Olah, and so on. And now we understand the Medrash itself said the Chidah. In Bechukosai telechish tiamelim b'Torah, yenachshu lachem esak haTorah kilos mitzvosai tishmoru, sher kriyamtem ha-mitzvos. If you're amal b'Torah, what does that have to do with the mitzvos? It means the mitzvos that you can't keep, those are the ones go even deeper on. Shetiamelim b'Torah. So zvachim, menachos, parts of Torah. We don't have a Beis HaMikdash. We're not offering korbanos. They're the parts of Torah. They're not the yeshiva shemesechtas. The Chafetz Chaim said that it's like pidyon shvuyim. You have to redeem the captives, the mesechtas that are being neglected and ignored. To study dafka those. And how do we show we want the Beis HaMikdash? We want Mashiach by studying specifically the mesechtas that are the most neglected. But it means the mitzvos that we can't do, we're not qualified for, we're not included in. That shetiamelim b'Torah, those are the mitzvos we should focus on and learn. Va'asisam osam. That if you learn them, ba'amelas, if we delve deep into them, then it's as if we observe them. Then it's as if we observe them ourselves. Okay, moving over to Rav Druck. Rav Druck also has a couple interpretations, then we'll get past the first pasuk. And we got a hard stop today because we got mincha. We don't usually say that at the Parsha shir. If we say at the Parsha shir we've got a hard stop because we've got mincha, that's a very long Parsha shir. Normally it's at 9:30 in the morning. But today we got a hard stop. So Rav Druck says the following. He quotes the Rashi, Shetiamelim b'Torah, and he quotes the Chaim HaKadosh. Arba'im v'shnayim perushim b'pasuk zeh. The Chaim HaKadosh, Rav Chaim Ibn Atar, has 42 interpretations on this pasuk. Wow. So his Parsha Shir, he also didn't get past the first pasuk. 42 separate interpretations, suggestions the Or Chaim has. The second one is, quote, Od yirtza derech masha amrizal, pasuk chishavti derachai, she'davar choshev la'asos in yanav raglam malichim osam me'atzim beis ha-medrash l'rav Chafetz, v'aratzim v'regilas b'davar. Medrash tells us that David HaMelech had all kinds of plans. He had all kinds of goals, all kinds of aspirations for that day, and yet he found himself that his feet kept taking him back where? To the base of Medrash. In Bechukosai telecho perish halichaschem me'atzmati achareha k'maimer David l'rov ha'cheshek v'ha'regilos. If we condition ourselves and cultivate ourselves and habituate ourselves and have such a yearning and such a love, then our body itself will carry us. So even if upstairs, even if on our list, on our to-do list, I got to go to Publix, and I got to go to Costco, and I got to stop at the tailor, and I got to hit the dry cleaning, and yet, I keep finding myself in the base medrash. That's Bechukosai telechu. Something we love so much, we yearn for so much, we can't get enough of, we keep finding ourselves there. A person who's really conditioned to love Torah can't get enough of Torah. You know those people. They can't stop checking the stock market every day. Even Memorial Day when the market's closed, they're still checking it. Just to make sure that what they saw Friday is they still remember. And they add up what they have. Some people can't get enough. The box score. Rangers, Panthers, overtime. Who won? Who had the winning score? Were there more Rangers fans, Panther fans there? What happened? Some people can't get enough. And even if they're not intending it, and even if they're meant to be thinking about something else, their mind is back there. Lahavdil, lahavdil, lahavdil. A person who's so drawn to and connected with and lives off of and is nourished by Torah, you can't get enough of it. Wherever you go, that's what you're thinking, that's what you're reading, that's what you're learning, that's the little thing you have in your pocket. Today you can have almost Kol Torah Kula on your phone. You never have an excuse. You're never in a place that you can't make the best use of your time to be learning Torah. That's Hergel. Our habits reveal what we love, what we care about. What's our habit? You know, some people, when they're sitting at their computer, they're just checking the same, without thinking about it, Their finger on the mouse brings them back to the same websites. So what in a mindless, thoughtless way are you being brought back to? What are you checking out? Is it Times of Israel? Because you can't stop thinking about what's going on in Israel. Is it some social media site? Is it the stock market? Is it Amazon to order another package? Where is it that without thinking, mindlessly, that's where your fingers and your computer bring you back? That's where you go. When you open your phone because you're bored and you're sitting and you're waiting without even thinking, that's where you are. So lahavdil, 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 David HaMelech described, the Medrash tells us, that he says, Chishafti d'rachai, I thought about my ways, that's Bechukosai teilechu. And now we understand, says Rav Druck, that's what we say every morning. You ready? It's a little bonus siddur snippet before Mincha. Every morning, Berachas HaShachar, we say the words, may it be your will, Hashem, shetargilenu. Give us the habit of your Torah, and let us stick to and cling to your mitzvos. What does it mean, shetargilenu b'sorasecha? Say it every morning. And I don't even remember if we said this in siddur snippets. It was so many years and snippets ago when we learned this in Berachas HaShachar. What do those words mean, shetargilenu b'sorasecha? Now we understand, based on the Orach Chaim, based on the measures of David HaMelech, based on the interpretation of Bechukosai teilechu. Hashem, targilenu b'sorasecha, let my regilus, let my habit, let my momentum, let my inertia, let the default of my mindlessness be, it leads me back to your Torah. That when I get in the car, I don't put on some podcast, I don't put on some music, I don't put on some comedy. The default, instinctively, mindlessly, I press Torah. Targilenu b'sorasa. I have a few minutes in the car. I have a few minutes I'm walking. I have a few minutes I'm shopping. I have a few minutes I'm cooking. Targilenu b'sorasecha. Let my regilas be Torah. Let that be my habit. Let that be my default. Let that be where I automatically go. That's Rav Druck number one. Rav Druck number two. Mashmas lashon drashos chazal. Shemiteves in Bechukosai teilechu dosh te'milim haTorah. Halicha. Now the pasuk says, if you don't listen and you don't do these mitzvos, and Rashi there says, if you fail to delve into and to immerse yourselves in the depths of Torah. So so how does it work? Rav Druck is wondering. Imlo tishma'u means that you were an amel, so then it should have been that if you listen, that's the amelis, not Bechukosai teilechu. How does this make sense? So says Rav Druck the following: Hakohen levar ki diktok chazal kansha darsh was a pasuk. In Bechukosai teilechu, eina mashmos tevas teilechu, ela mi mashmos tevas Bechukosai. She'amal haTorah hu chok. B'derech hatevek de ladas din haTorah tzorach kiyam hamitzvos le'tzorach lasak b'tor yom v'layla hakol yatoli b'kishurav shel adam. Why does it take delving? Why does it take toiling? Why does it take work? It should be that if you're bright, you're able to download all of Torah and access it and have it, like all other chachmos. Asher adam kishroni yoser lomed, maher yoser es razeh mektoa. Whatever the subject, the smarter, the brighter a person is, the quicker they pick it up. V'adam pochas kishroni lomed laat yoser. And if you're slower, you have a poorer memory, you have bad analytical skills, it takes you longer. It's not totally on the amelus, and yet Torah is this unusual subject that it requires amelus for all. That's a chok below siba. The way Hashem orchestrated His Torah is that it requires amelus from the smartest and the brightest to the slowest, or the one who struggles the most. There's no one who can say, yeah, it's easy, I just read it like a novel and I'm done. In order to become someone and something in Torah, no matter where you start, and I'm blessed to have access and a relationship with some true Gedolei Yisrael, brilliant minds. And we're tempted to dismiss and say, yeah, it's easy for them. It comes naturally for them. But you know how hard they work? You think of Schechter and Rav Asher Weiss and the Ger Rosh Yeshiva and many others. You think it doesn't take amelus? I have a poster that we hang in our sukkah. It's an amazing poster. It's a collage of pictures of Rav Schechter learning all over. It was made by one of his children. You have to have access to all these pictures. Every family vacation, online, sitting on the ground, sitting on the end, waiting at the air. Just pictures of him. And when Rav Schechter is learning from wherever he is, and whatever he just wants another few minutes to learn. And when he's doing that, there's no one and nothing else in the world. It doesn't matter where he is and what's happening around him. That's what's going on. He was once staying at my house and he was catching that earliest flight of the day out, the 6 a.m. that you get picked up at the airport at 4:30, 4:15 a.m. to get to the airport. And he wasn't sure, as brilliant a mind he is, he's not in this world, how to work the alarm clock exactly. So I woke up to check to make sure that he was awake, that Rebbe was going to get out on time. Not only was he awake, when I came out, I'll never forget this, he was sitting at my dining room table and there was a Noda B'Yehuda open in front of him. He was looking up at Tshuva in the Noda B'Yehuda at 4 o'clock in the morning. Whatever time of day your mind is brightest, save the Noda B'Yehuda for that moment. Because that's what you need in order to go through a Tshuva of the Noda B'Yehuda. But he was sitting, it was 4 a.m., wasn't time yet, the car wasn't there to pick him up. Noda B'Yehuda. That's Hergel. That's the Tagilena B'Sorasecha. That's the Amelus. That no matter where you start with what IQ and what memory, you still have to be Amel. You still have to be drawn to and love learning wherever you are. And that aspect of Torah, different than every single other area of study, is what makes it a chok, says Rav Druck. And that's why Bechukosai Telechu. You have to know that this subject called Torah, it's a chok. It's a chok. It requires amelus no matter where you start out, no matter how bright or gifted you are. Lo b'chtei azchira Torah, zchira Torah sapasik adam kiyamas ba'ol, Parsha Paraduma. In pasuk zeh she'in divrei Torah miskayim el mishamemes atzma Torah, shayach lichto pasuk zeh b'sok Parsha Paraduma. So where do we learn adam kiyamas ba'ol, mishamemes alay? You have to be willing to kill yourself over Torah. Kill yourself, not sit back in a recliner, have it spoon-fed. You've got to schwitz over Torah. You got to kill yourself to learn, to remember, to be literate. You have to kill yourself. You have to work. Where do we learn that? Where's the pasuk Adam ki yamas ba'al that mishamemes aleh is in what context? Para aduma. Because that aspect of Torah that it demands that level of amelus is a chok. So it appears within the quintessential chok, namely the para aduma. It's all part of a longer essay he has here, but I want to move on past the opening pasuk. Past the opening pasuk. Here's one more of Druck. I was going to... Yeah, one more. Quick. On the words, Ves Mitzvosai Tishmaru. Mitishmaru. Es Mitzvosai Tishmaru. So, follow my decrees. Telechu, walk with them. Condition yourself. That's where you go automatically. Mitzvosai Tishmaru. And my commandments, Tishmaru. What does the word Tishmaru mean? It can't really mean observe, because that's what V'asisimosam means, right? If V'asisimosam means to do them, then what does Tishmaru mean? So listen to what he says. Habitu ainepot v'yom al Hashem ha'mekayim es mitzvah Hashem ha'lochem v'rahu Shomer Mitzvos. Madu nekra Shomer Mitzvos lo mekayim Mitzvos. What do we call somebody who's observant? Are you a Shomer Torah or Mitzvos? Shomer Torah or Mitzvos? Is a person observant? Are they a Shomer Shabbos? Shomer Torah u'mitzvos. Why do we call them a shomer? We should call them a makayim. Do you observe? Do you fulfill? Colloquially, why do we refer to someone who observed Torah as shomer Torah, shomer Shabbos, shomer kashrus, shomer negiah? Why do we refer to it as a shomer? So listen to what he answers. There are two types of people that have a relationship with mitzvos. There's a person who's scrupulous and vigilant and careful and gets it right. They're careful about Shabbos and Kashrus, Taras HaMishpacha, Ben Adam L'Chavero, Tzedakah, Chesed. Avayesh Adam Achar Lo Rak Shemekayim Hu Es Kol HaMitzvos Ela Yoshev Tamid U'Mitzapa Lekach. But there's another relationship you could have with mitzvos. There's another level. Listen to this. You listening? There's another level. You could observe mitzvahs as a check. Check. Went to Shachar's, check. Daf Yomi, check. Put some money in the pushka, check. Check. Paid that shiva call, check. Okay, Pesach done, check. Shavuos is coming up. Do we count the Omer last night? Check. Just means it's a burden, it's a responsibility, it's an obligation, and I've got to do it all, and I do it all vigilantly and carefully and scrupulously. Ala chumras. But there's another level. The other level of relationship with mitzvahs is not just a check mark. It's not simply to fulfill it and say you're done, but rather it is to look forward to. It is to count down. It is to be excited. It is to be enthused. Your excitement and your joy, you have no rest. You have no peace. Just can't wait for the next mitzvah. When's the next davening? When's the next mitzvah? When's the next yontif? When's the next opportunity Tamid yirdov acharei od mitzvos u'masim tovim. V'yichaka v'yitzapalem b'kilyon einayim. You're looking, you're longing, you're waiting. Where's the opportunity? What's the next chesed I could do? Who's the next person I can lift their spirits? Where's the next shir I can go to or listen to? No. What's the next kaddish I can answer? What's the next bracha I could say amen to? It's an excitement and a looking and a longing. It's an altogether different way of living life. Both fulfill Torah and mitzvos, but the first does so responsively. The first does so as a reaction. Check, done. The other does so looking and longing and waiting. Zeh perish b'lashon shmira. So that's what the word shmira means. Pasuk says back in Bereshis, V'aviv shamar es hadavar. And Rashi there says on that pasuk, Shamar es hadavar yamamtin u'metzapa masa yavo. Aviv shamar es hadavar. Ami nemar. Who is it talking about? Yaakov about Yosef. What's he waiting for? When will it come? When will he arrive? That dream be fulfilled. What does shamar es hadavar mean in this context? Aviv shamar es hadavar is he was looking forward. He was anticipating. He was excited. He was counting down. The word shamar shin mem resh means excitement, anticipation, looking forward. Looking forward. That's what the Oiv Yisrael, the Apter Rebbe says, the Apter Rav Yeshua Heschel, says that's the pshat and what it means to be a Shomer Shabbos. Shomer Shabbos is what you do from Sunday to Friday. Shabbos, you observe Shabbos. When are you a Shomer Shabbos? Are you excited? Are you looking forward? Are you turning Friday into Erev Shabbos? Are you learning? Are you preparing? Are you counting down? Are you excited? Are you anticipating? Are you planning? Shamar means to look forward. So now you can understand, says Rav Druck, what does the pasuk mean? Ves mitzvosai tishmeru. If va'asisim means to observe and to keep, what does tishmeru mean? It means not just the fulfillment and observance, it means the attitude, the relationship with. Vaviv shamar sadavar, mitzvosai tishmeru. What's the relationship? And that's why, what do we call somebody who keeps mitzvos? The greatest praise that we can say is, they're a shomer Torah u'mitzvos. The truth is, not everybody is. Some are just a Mekayim Torah and mitzvos. Some just happen to fulfill Torah and mitzvos, but they're not Shomer Torah and mitzvos. To be Shomer Torah and mitzvos is a different relationship than to simply be Mekayim Torah and mitzvos, and that's the meaning of the words, says Rav Druck. Okay, moving along. Perach Vav, Pasuk Vav. Still in the brachas, we haven't gotten to the Tochacha yet. V'nasati shalom ba'artzachem. Hashem says, I'm going to give you peace in your land. V'shchavtem ve'in macharid. A sword won't pass on your land. You'll pursue and chase your enemy. And what will happen? They will fall before you by the sword. So to summarize these two psukim, let's go to the beginning of the first pasuk and the end of this next pasuk. V'nasati shalom ba'aretz. God says, I'll give you peace in your land. And your enemies are going to fall before you. Ask Rav Mordechai Hakohen. Who's Rav Mordechai Hakohen? The Sifsei Kohen. 16th century, Tzvas. Ask the Sifsei Kohen, Rav Mordechai Hakohen. L'chora seder hakosav mahupach. The psukim are backwards. Hayitzarch lahaktim v'lenafloi veichem lefneichem lefnei v'nasati shalom. It's out of order. What happens first? You have peace in your land, and then your enemies fall? No. You destroy and you eliminate Hamas. You get rid of Hezbollah. You kill the head of the snake, Iran. You take care of the Houthis, you take care of all your enemies, and then Menasati Shalom Ba'artzachem. Now you'll have peace in the land. The pasuk asks for Mordechai Kohen, Sifsei Kohen. The pasuk's got it backwards. You'll have peace in your land, then your enemies fall, and then you'll have peace in your land. Listen to the answer he gives. I had the schus to say this under a chuppah last night, but I didn't get to read it inside. Because they always say, Rabbi, would you speak? Very briefly. So anyway, Elach kacha dvar mamurim. And they didn't say that in this case, but you got to be brief if you're going to speak under a chuppah. Kacha dvar mamurim. V'nasati shalom ba'aretz. Masai. When should you have peace in the land? Kasher yisro shalom ba'aretz beinechem levein atzmachem b'riv lo yafrid ben achim u'medanim lo yifligu machanos az v'naflu oivechem lefnechem. This pshat is unbelievable. When you make peace among yourselves, when you have harmony and unity, when you're unified, then Hashem will take care that the enemies will fall before you. When you're divided, when you're on the brink of civil war, when you're blaming, when you're pointing fingers, when you're rallying, when you're protesting, when you're coming out against, then your enemies aren't going to fall. The peace the pasuk is talking about is not the absence of the enemies. That's a peace that comes after v'naflo oivechem lifnechem. What's the peace that precedes it? V'nasati shalom ba'aretz. When you make peace between each other, when you have peace. This is still a time that we need such achdus. There are so many forces working so hard to divide us and splinter us and break us apart, and we can't let them. We can't let them because we're so desperately longing for so desperately longing for our enemies to simply fall before us, to collapse and to fall before us. But what must precede it is shalom ba'aretz. There has to be peace. In his words, beinchem levein atzmechem, not with your enemies. There have to be peace within ourselves. We have to have unity and community and peoplehood. And when we'll have peace, shalom ba'aretz, then v'naflu oivechem lifnechem b'mirtz Hashem b'meira v'yamenu, it should come quickly. Perchav vav pasuk yud beis. V'salakti b'sochem v'yislachem l'okim v'atem tiyuli la'am. God says, I'll walk among you, and I will walk among you. I will be God unto you, and you will be a people unto me. Throwback to the Eish Tamid, Rav Druck's past sefer on the Parsha. We didn't get to this in the previous years. Rashi says, "V'asalachti b'sochem atayel imchem began Eden ke'echad mikem." I'll walk with you in Gan Eden like I'm one of you. V'lo tiyum mizda'azam mimeni, and you won't be scared, you won't be frightened, you won't recoil from me. Yachal lo tiru mimenu, tamad lomar v'yisam lachem luk. So maybe you'll be so casual and comfortable that you'll have no awe or reverence of me. No, don't worry. V'yisam lachem lalokim, I'll still be your God. You'll still know who's boss. You'll still know what's what. Wonders Rav Druck in his Eish Tamid. Pella who's there. Keita yitachen shenatayim l'kadosh baruch hu b'gan Eden. V'lo nizdazeya. You're going to walk side by side with God. You're going to go on a tiyul in Gan Eden with God, and you're not going to tremble. You're not going to recoil in fear. How could it be? Your heart should be overwhelmed with an awesome fear. How will that happen? Says Rav Druck, you know what you see from you? Yesod Otzim. Kamagadol kocho shel hergel. You see the danger of habit. The more used to something you are, the more something becomes a habit, the more casual you feel about it. You lose the awe, you lose the reverence, you lose the respect. It can grow old and it can grow stale. That which was so exciting, that which was so special, that which was so awe-inducing, everything can grow stale. Even going on a tiyul side by side with Hashem in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden. For Yaduas Kol B'tochen Ken Kasher Omid Ufnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bochen Klois V'Leiv Eich Lo Yachash B'Yirav V'Achad Ein Zos Ela Shenichnas Tachas Michber Kosh Al Hergel Asher Matzliach Lakotz Kol Hargesh Al Golan Achazon B'Yoser Lachein Af Bezeh Shemitam HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Gan Eden Yish Makom Lomar Shekvar Lo Tia Yira Talmud Lomar V'Yisam Lachem L'Elokim. You'll be so comfortable and casual, you might think that you'll lose your awe and reverence. Hashem has to ensure and guarantee, don't worry, it will still be there. You see the danger of hergel. Person has to always be on alert. Switch up, use a new sitter with a new layout, mix things up, break out of the habit, break out of the casual relationship, mix things up and light things up and get things going, because even the holiest activity, even that which was so uplifting and exciting at first, can grow stale, even going on a tiyul with Hashem in Gan Eden. Per Chavav Pasuk Lamed Daled. Chavav Lamed Daled. Page 714. Lamed Daled. Az tir tzar t'Shabbos oseh kol yemei hashama. You know what, actually we're going to save this one for Shabbos. Maybe Erev Shabbos, maybe turn Friday into Erev Shabbos. It's a lesson about Shabbos. We'll save it because we're already running out of time. Per Chavav Pasuk Mem. Chavav Mem. Bottom of page 714. Now we're in the Tochacha. The harsh graphic rebuke our people unfortunately have seen come true. The Klausenberg Rebbe famously after the war was in Shul Parshas Bechukosai. The Tochacha was being read. The Baal Koreh was doing is the Minhag Yisrael, which is to read it quietly under his breath. Because we don't want to say these things out loud, because, you know, when you're a Jew, if you say something, it could happen. So certain words we don't say, we whisper. So the Tocha, we whisper. And the Klausenberg Rebbe said, louder, hecher, louder, louder. Everyone was stunned, and the Baal Koreh looked around, and he said, we lived it, and we survived it. You don't have to whisper it. If you're reading the great book I've been promoting, actually the author sent me an email. I guess it got back to him that we've been encouraging. I don't get any royalty, but it's an amazing. The Art Scroll came out with a new biography of the Kloisenberger Rebbe. You want to attach yourself to a person of Emunah. You want to connect to a hotspot of Emunah. If you have a slow connection and you want high-speed Emunah, use the hotspot of the Kloisenberger Rebbe, this incredible book. Hecher, louder, louder. But we read it quietly. And here in this pasuk it describes, they will confess their sin, the sin of their fathers, for the treachery with which they betrayed me, and for having behaved towards me, bekeri. Keri's mikra, happenstance, chance. Hashem didn't give me this job. Hashem didn't give me this shidduch. Hashem didn't give me this baby. Hashem didn't give me this parking spot. Hashem didn't give me this. It's a happenstance. It's chance. It's random. When we walk with God with randomness, He responds. He reciprocates. He walks with us with randomness as well. So this pasuk uses a very funny language because the pasuk says, "V'hisvadu es avonam." We're confessing. I don't understand. Isn't confessing a good thing? Confessing is a good thing. So why is this part of the tochacha? Why is this part of the rebuke that God's going to respond to? Why is this part of the keri, the happenstance? Listen to the Chafetz Chaim. Kan melamed asosanu haTorah shevidui b'li tshuva v'charata v'kabala lahaba ein lo erech. A vidui, if you confess, but you haven't expressed regret about the past, and you haven't come up with a plan and a commitment for the future, your confession is empty. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. It reminds me sometimes of the child, sometimes the wife or the husband. You know, often the husband, he knows at some point that day he's going to have to apologize. So at some point he says sorry. So she says, why? Now the hard work begins. He's got to figure out what he did wrong, what he's saying sorry for. And even if he knows what he did wrong and he said he's sorry, but he doesn't really regret having done it, and she and he both know he's going to do it again, so it's true, I told you I was going there, but I was playing golf with my friends. It's true, I said I was on my way home, I hadn't even left the office. It's true, I this, that, or the other thing. It's all true. It's all true. He says, it's true, I confess, I apologize. But she says that's empty and it's meaningless. Because if it's not filled with regret for the past and it doesn't contain a commitment for the future, it's garnished. It's nothing. Chafetz Chaim says the same is true with Hashem. Visvadu. It's even worse. You're confessing. You can identify. You know what you did wrong. But there's no serious regret and no serious attempt to fix it going forward. It's worthless. It's meaningless. It means nothing. That's why it's part of the tochacha. And that's why it garners this harsh response. Soloveitchik has a different interpretation. Soloveitchik points out and notices something. The Ramban raises the question. The order of the Pesukim seem to be inverted. First reads Jews will confess their sins, but the consequence of that confession will be exile. The opposite should be true. Once the people realize their error and confess, Hashem should react favorably. The answer lies in the form of the confession which the Jews employ. Notice in the Pasuk, Visvadu, they confess, Ves Avon. You can look inside, it's an open book test. Vesavon avosam. They're confessing their own sins and the sins of their fathers. The pasuk indicates the Jews will admit their sins and their fathers. Implicit in this confession is the contention that the sins are not entirely their fault. They will claim their fathers introduced them to the sinful lifestyle, mode of living, and thus they're not totally to blame. The Jew will claim that their sins are not their fault, could not be avoided. There were dynamic forces that prevented them from doing the right thing. They'll confess, but then they'll blame others. And that is not a real confession. The moment your confession is, Vizvadu, you got me, I was wrong, made a mistake. But, do you know why it happened? Have you met my parents? Do you know where I come from, the DNA? You're right, I always run late. My parents late, my grandparents were always late, my great-grandparents were always late. Or do you meet my teacher or my boss? Or do you know my children? The person who admits that they made a mistake, but immediately shifts into blame mode, and part of their v'hisvadu, part of the confession is avon avosam, to blame their parents. Azay is nish confession. That's not a confession. That is not a confession. And that's why it's part of the tochacha, and that's why it garners that harsh rebuke. Azay zok Rav Soloveitchik. Perchavav pasuk membeis. Chavav membeis, top of page 716. Hashem says now, v'zacharti, the conclusion of the tochacha, v'zacharti as brisi Yaakov. Please leave the door closed. Just go out the other way. Gersh, can you lock that back door? V'zacharti as brisi Yaakov. Av as brisi Yitzchak, av as brisi Avram as kor, v'artz as kor. I'll remember my bris with Yaakov and my bris with Yitzchak and my bris with Avram, and I'll also remember Va'aretz Eskor. I'll also remember the land. What's going on over here? What do you notice about this pasuk? It's in reverse. Yaakov, Yitzchak, Avram. And by the way, in addition to the avos, you know what other merit, what other schus I'm going to invoke? And also v'ha'aretz. So we've got an inanimate object. That's what we culminate with. That's what we conclude with. We are in need of all the merit we can earn. We know Hashem showering with all the love that we can get. So we're invoking the avos and also the land. The avos are out of order. And then what does the land add to vibrant, dynamic, actual animate people? Animate people. So we'll start with the out of order. The Shlah Kadosh says, it's a pasuk of Nechama. The klalos are not yet over. So why are we invoking the Kabbalah? It's an unbelievable shlah. The tochach is not over. And we're invoking, Hashem says, I'm going to remember Yaakov, Yitzchak, and Avram and the land. And that's part of the tochach of the rebuke? How is that part of the rebuke? Listen to the shlah. Hashem says, you don't come from nowhere. You had the greatest teachers, the greatest mentors, the greatest role models. And because of that, you should have known better. Others have an excuse. How was I meant to know? Who taught me? Did you see how I was raised? No wonder I couldn't do better. But you could have done better. Look where you come from. Look who you are. I was once at a sentencing of someone who was really a wonderful person, got mixed up in a bad thing and had a lot of people argue on his behalf. And the judge said, I never received so many letters before. Rabbis, community leaders, my whole life, I never received so many letters in any other case. And I read every one. That's a commitment I made. I would always do. He said, but I must tell you, and here it backfired. He said, when I read all these letters, all I could think to myself was, there are people who appear before me, they had no way of knowing any better. They had no role models and no mentors, and nobody who taught them. And for everyone who wrote a letter saying how wonderful you are, it leaves me more wondering how you could have gone wrong because you had so many powerful role models in your life. Wow. I was stunned in that moment. It backfired. The judge put it all the other way. And that's this pasuk. That's the judge upstairs. He says, "V'zacharti es brisi Yaakov, es brisi Yitzchak, es brisi Avram, es kor." I know where you come from. I know what opportunities. I know what teachers. I know what role models. I know who you had. I remember it. And therefore you could have and you should have done better. And that's why this pasuk, which seems to be invoking merit, is still included in what? The tochacha, the klalos itself. It's still in there. What is Va'aretz Eskor? What is this land? The Soloveitchik says the very fact that Israel is isolated internationally, the vast majority of Klal Yisrael is sympathetic towards her and ready to suffer all manner of charges against her by Jew-haters. The fact that we identify with the state and see all who oppose it as Jew-haters is due to the sanctity of our avos. Take away Eretz Yisrael, and the Jews of the diaspora will be engulfed by a tremendous wave of estrangement and assimilation. All the dramatic, tragic experience of the sanctity of the avos, the existential difference of Jewish history, would far be wiped out. When you reach the stage of you will become lost among the nations, when you'll be in turmoil, dumbfounded, afraid, when you'll no longer want to be recognized as Jewish, hiding like Yonah in the bowels of the ship, when you'll be frightened by the lot of Avram Ha'ivri of the patriarchal covenant, it will not avail you in spite of all to forget the ancient covenant. I will bring about something new that will always remind you of your Jewishness, that will exemplify the fact that you are different. I, Hashem, will remember the covenant. You'll be forced to remember it. The covenant of Avram will boom forth from the radio. All the newspapers will point out to Jews his particular promise, his stubbornness, as well as his cast iron determination. The shadow of Avram, our father, will pursue you. Do you know how? By Eretz Yisrael, and I will remember the land. This is the most prophetic, prescient thing I ever read in my whole life. Look what's going on right now. At the very college campuses where Jews were assimilated and losing their Jewishness, anti-Semites are putting up their homeless shelters, their tents, and they're screaming their anti-Semitic, vile hate. And all why? The assimilating Jews who are trying to forget they're Jewish, anti-Semites are yelling at them about Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, your covenant, your Jewishness. Why? V'ha'aretz eskor. Because Israel will be the catalyst. That little tiny state smaller than New Jersey that could fit many times in the state of Florida, that little sliver of land, the only in its area that doesn't even produce oil, that little place is going to be the cause when you forget that others remember Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. How many Jews across this country and the world who have forgotten the bris, the covenant, forgot they descend from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and they're being caused to remind by anti-Semites in their face. And what's the reason? The haaretz is core. The land of Israel is bringing the anti-Semitism that's reminding the Jew who tries to forget that they're a child of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I have to read that again. Read it too fast because we got to go to Mincha. It's unbelievable. As always, a lot more. We didn't even get to Erech, the end of the Parsha, of value. We leave our abbreviated Parsha share here, but at least we got it in. Should be a good day and a good night of Soros Tovos for Klal Yisrael. Thank you.